and welcome to Daily Newspaper Analysis, which is presented to you by Losico. So today we will discuss two articles again. The first article is from The Hindu, which is titled as Another Wave Spells More Nutrition Loss. This article almost talks about the topic which we have discussed several times before as well, that how this pandemic of COVID-19 has impacted the nutrition level, specifically in the poor kids in the country. And the second article is from the Indian Express, which is titled as Everyone's War. So this article is a very beautifully written article which talks about that how the movement of, or basically the attention of various forces, let's say the police forces in the country, that has been taken completely by the COVID-19 has caused the problems of maintenance of law and order in the country, and what are the solutions to this problem have been discussed in this article. And thirdly, we have the News and Flash column. So this newspaper analysis is presented to you by me. My name is Sheva Khan. I had completed my BA LLB degree from Law College Dehradun, Uttaranchal University in the year 2019, and I was the gold medalist of my batch. I have been a national debater and a public speaker throughout my educational career. And here at Losico, I work as a senior associate and as the current affairs expert and manager for free content and outreach over here. If in case you wish to connect with me, you can definitely find my Twitter as well as LinkedIn handles in the description as well as over here. With this, let's see what is the multiple choice question from yesterday's discussion. Under which article of the Indian Constitution does the Supreme Court have the power to transfer cases from high courts to itself if cases involve the same question of law? Your options are Article 124, Article 139A, Article 136, or Article 214. If you know the answer, you can put it down in the comment section below. Also, guys, if you like this analysis, then please give it a thumbs up, share it with your friends, and also leave down a comment. It is really very encouraging for us as the people presenting this particular analysis. With this, let's see what is the descriptive question for the day. How has the COVID pandemic affected the nutritional levels, especially amongst the poor? You can write down the answer in maximum a word limit of 250 to 300 words. With this, let's start our discussion for the first article of the day, which talks about the nutrition loss and COVID-19 waves. So the recent survey data, as per the Rapid Rural Community Response Survey, provide crucial evidence of the nature and persistence of food and financial insecurity in rural areas. So as we know that this COVID-19 has not only hit the health sector in the country, rather it had also severely hit the economy as well as the nutrition, and that too especially in the rural areas. Let's understand the key findings of this particular survey. Firstly, let's understand about cutting down of the food resources. So according to the survey, 40% of sample after first lockdown, which was 25%, continued to cut down even in December or January 2001. So here, even the food was not able to be distributed, though definitely we know that under the Pradhan Mantri Anna Yojana and various other similar schemes, various efforts were made to distribute the foods. But what was the ultimate cause or consequence? That though the food grains were distributed, still the nutritional level in these food was not taken care of. As we know that schemes like Anganwadi as well as midday meals were very important and crucial in providing the basic nutrients to the rural poor, especially the rural poor children. And because of the shutdown of the school, these schemes were brought to a complete halt, and thus a great loss in the nutritional value has been witnessed in this current situation. The second one is reduction in the incomes. So the middle class in India shrunk by 32 million households in 2020. So this was basically a downward shift in incomes. Now, as we know that according to the report of Oxfam as well, a very uncommon trend has been noticed in this pandemic, especially that the richer have become even richer during the times of economic crisis as well, and the poorer have become more and more poorer. So this needs to be seen that though the pandemic had hit the economy, but the impact of this hitting was not at all equitable, and it was not equal for all the sectors of the society. The rich could still make good money out of the pandemic, and the poor even turned poorer. And thirdly, we have the crisis of the migrant workers, which is known to all of us. So the limited support for migrant workers was there in Manrega, as there were greater demands for the jobs through the schemes of Manrega. Please consider Manrega stands for Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Act. So this basically guarantees at least 100 days employment to a person or a worker in the entire period of 1 year, that is 365 days. So, because as we know that many people had lost their jobs and the migrant workers were facing significant problems and had shifted back to their native villages or towns. So, in such a situation, the burden on the Manrega to provide more and more jobs had increased. But still, unfortunately, Manrega was not very successful in providing and sufficing every individual that had asked for the demands or had demands for the job under this particular scheme. So around 57% had gone back to the destination city by December and January 2021, and remaining also plan to go back, because obviously, as we know, that the situation in the cities is even worse, and that is why the employment opportunities are not readily available. That is why it is still compelling more and more workers to push back and move back to their native villages. And in particular, if we talk about the food security, so the government has promised to restart the Pradhan Mantri Garib Kalyan Anna Yojana with 5 kg rice or wheat per person over and above the regular. Now, as we know that in this situation, free food grains were also distributed by the government via the means of various fair price shops in various districts. But still, there has to be a larger and even broader coverage of this particular scheme, which is called as the Pradhan Mantri Garib Kalyan Anna Yojana. Now, here, this article also suggests some steps that can be taken in this direction. Firstly, similar supports need to be provided for stabler, longer periods. Now, as we know that in the initial time, till the month of November 2020, this scheme had been extended wherein free food grains were provided to the poor people. But still, since keeping in mind that how devastating the impact of this pandemic has been, we need to consider that similar support system or similar support schemes need to be provided for a longer time period, so that the people, specifically the poor people, have enough and considerable time wherein they can adjust to this growing problem of the pandemic as well as the shrinking down of the economy. Second, remove existing issues in schemes such as Manrega and potential urban employment scheme. Now, as we know that though Manrega has been one of the most successful schemes of the government, but still there have been many obstacles, limitations and hurdles that have been seen in Manrega. Now, one of the biggest hurdle was that though Manrega promises 100 days employment, but still the amount or the wages that the workers get in return are sometimes very, very meager. And in such a situation, keeping in mind the inflation and the increasing value of every particular thing or the increasing cost of every particular good and service in the market, it becomes practically impossible to suffice just by the means of the wages which are gained through Manrega. So one of the biggest challenge is this, and also Manrega sometimes becomes very inefficient or insufficient in providing employment to a larger number of people. Thus, these hurdles and limitations should be taken care of. Thirdly, the public distribution system and midday meal scheme in primary schools must be ramped up systematically and urgently. Now, as we had just earlier discussed, that the public distribution system via the means of the ration cards and the fair price shops, first is that, and the other is the scheme of midday meal, which actually had been solving or serving the purpose of providing nutritional meals to the primary school children, specifically belonging to the rural strata or the poor strata of the society. So such schemes need to be systematically ramped up and enhanced, and that too on an urgent basis. Because if at all, let's consider if there is a longer time period or a longer gap between these nutritional value, then definitely there is a good chance that we as the citizens of country might lose many children in the coming time, and that too, if we might have the children, then they might not be nourished in the right and proper sense. That is why we definitely don't want that to be happening to our population, and that is why the schemes like PDS and the midday meal scheme should be brought up urgently, and they should be enhanced and given a wider scope in the society. And fourthly, establish community kitchens such as Amma canteens for migrants. Now, as we know that Mumbai specifically has this very amazing system, which was the tiffin system, and we have the community kitchens where the food is prepared or is cooked in the bulk situation. So this actually is it makes possible for the migrant workers to afford the food, and that too is almost very nutritional and homemade and home cooked food at a very nominal price. That is why these community kitchens make it feasible and possible for the migrant workers to make themselves available with the food that is essential definitely for their basic survival. With this, let's discuss the second article for the day, which talks about COVID crisis and maintaining law and order. So the pandemic has wrecked the fragile equilibrium between law and order, and it is only a matter of time before the have-nots express their anger and frustration unlawfully. Now, when we talk about this problem, what actually is the problem wherein we talk about the lack of the sources or the lack of the forces, police forces specifically, and the problem of law and order? See, already it was a debated contest or it was a debated argument that our country, India, suffers with the lack of right number of personals, or the police personals and even the army personals. Though we might stand out to be the third largest or the fourth largest forces of the world, but still keeping in mind the large population of the country, and also keeping in mind the requirements that we actually seek out from these forces, we must understand that even before the pandemic, there was always an ever growing debate that more and more people should be recruited in these law and order maintaining forces. And specifically, the problem has even worsened and has become even more severe after the COVID-19 situation. So, as we know, that most of the police personnel or the police constables, the forces, and all the people associated in the police services, they are now hugely under the burden of maintaining various kinds of, maintaining law and order in the hospitals, checking whether people are wearing masks or not, and taking care of the various mandates regarding the COVID-19 guidelines that have been given by the government. In such a situation, the other roles which were played by the police forces, specifically if you talk about the deterring of crime in the society, these roles have been brought down, and that is why it brings, in a way, we can say it brings a conflict of interest. Basically, it brings a kind of dilemma for the police forces specifically, that where at the present situation should they be giving their greater attention. So, if we talk about specifically the law and order during COVID-19, so the problem can be exacerbated because of non availability of police forces and their distraction from the regular policing and administration activities, which we just discussed. And most of the 1.5 million personnel in the armed forces are committed to west and east borders. And if at all we talk about the armed forces, then definitely because of the disturbances that we have, specifically if we talk on the western border, we have the Pakistan, and even the situation on the eastern border, like we have the China on the eastern side of the Jammu and Kashmir. And even if we talk about the northeastern states, then we have Myanmar issue going on. So we know that in the current situation, the relations that India is sharing with its neighboring countries are not at their best, stature. So in such a situation, the armed personnel are completely subdued with the various responsibilities that have come up on the western and eastern borders, and that is why the other responsibilities that they used to play for maintenance of the law and order are being curbed in the current situation. Also, the additional troops in Kashmir since Article 370 abrogation have also been deployed over there, due to which a greater force or a greater rush has been seen towards the Jammu and Kashmir area, and thus the other parts of the country have been feeling a kind of vacuum in the law and order situation. So, without governance based on the covenants promising solace to law abiding citizens and retribution to lawbreakers, no government can govern a population of 1.3 billion. Now, this basically is one of the most beautiful lines this article has used, wherein it says that a government, just like we have the government in India that has the responsibility to take care of 1.3 billion people in the population, so such government should take up the stance wherein it should actually reward the citizens that abide by the law, and at the same time they should punish the punish the citizens that actually break the law. So this will actually solve, and this will make the people aware more and more about their duties, because as we know that the rights and duties go hand in hand, so they cannot be interdependent, they cannot be independent, rather they are interdependent, which means that if particular person, if I have a right upon something, then somebody else definitely will have the duty to provide me that particular thing, and vice versa is the similar situation, that if somebody else has a right over something, then I might have the duty to provide it to that person. So in such a situation, the government should strike the right balance by rewarding the law abiding citizens and by punishing the lawbreakers. So here it says that no covenant can work if majority feel crushed by inequitable treatment, and that is why we should be treating the citizens the way they treat the constitution. So it is as simple as that. If you respect the constitution, if you abide by the laws, then the government, the covenant, will be treating you very well, and if you don't, then you will be treated accordingly. Then this article further suggests some ways as to what should be done in this situation. Firstly, India's haves must open their coffers in different actions to help the have nots. It simply means that the population that have the various resources, the population that have the various privileges, now is the time that they realize their responsibility towards the citizens, and thus they open their coffers, which means they now open their treasury boxes and take an initiative to invest into the society and do something for the poor people who are in the category of have nots, which means who do not have various kinds of privileges, who do not even have many a times basic human rights as well. So the rich corporates, religious and quasi-religious entities must open their reserves and put cash in hands of the lowest strata using instruments such as, now how can they do this? Now, as we know that in this current situation, again, it is the poorest of the poor people who have to face the brunt of the all the things that are going on in the society, and thus such people who are rich, such religious or quasi-religious entities, they can actually help the society via the means of donations, salary advances, and interest-free loans. So definitely these are the things that we need in the hour. Definitely, apart from a very good and strong healthcare system, that the donations can help the poor to cure these particular basic healthcare problems, the salary advances to various employees that are working in these institutions or companies, and the interest free loans for treatment of various kinds of diseases, associated diseases, comorbidities, etc. And then institutions such as NCC, which is the National Cadet Corps, must be trained in first response treatments on mission mode timelines. Now, as we know that in this situation, we're also facing a lack or a shortage of the frontline healthcare workers, doctors, or even other kinds of forces. Similarly, this article says that we are also facing problem in the police forces as well. So here, just like the idea had proposed that we should be training more and more people, nurses, midwiferys, etc., to take up the role and help the healthcare workers. Similarly, the NCC corps or the NCC cadets can be better trained to help these police forces in the current situation. And the idle capacity, private buses, aircrafts, and unoccupied buildings must be used, as maybe the hospitals or the beds can be laid down in here and stuff like that. And the retired personals who have already retired from these forces can still be called for or recalled for basically the administrative support, and wherein their intellect and their vision can help us to deal with the situation in a more effective manner. With this, let's see what do we have for news in flash today. Firstly, Oscars 2021. Chloe Zhao's Nomadland. So the name of this movie is Nomadland, which is a wistful portrait of itinerant lives on open roads across the American West, won Best Picture at the 94th Academy Awards. So Zhao, who was born in China, also became the first woman of color to win the Best Director award. So please keep in mind the name of this movie, Nomadland, that has won the Oscars for 2021. Second, India ranks 94th in the Chandler Good Government Index. So, which is basically, it classifies 104 countries in terms of government capabilities and outcomes. So India has stood 94th in this particular rank. Please consider it is not 94th, rather it is 49th. So India has stood 49th in the Chandler Good Government Index. And thirdly, India has the third highest military spender according to SIPRI. So basically, SIPRI is the Stockholm International Peace Research Institute, and it says that India is the third highest in the world in 2020, behind US and China, that tracks military expenditure and arms trade globally. So SIPRI basically does this, and according to this, India is the third highest military spender in the world after US and China. So this was all for the day. We hope it was a good session for you. Thank you so much for staying tuned with LawSeco. Please like the channel and subscribe to our channel for such more updates to come. Thank you so much.